gentlemen, unicorns, and other blockchain enthusiasts. Welcome to already the 8th episode of the Stakin podcast. My name is Giselle, and today we're honored to sit down with the SSV team. Thank you so much for being here, first of all.
Thank you for having me.
It's really a pleasure. Let's just get started with the introduction question. Obviously, I think everyone will be very keen to know more about you, your journey so far in the crypto space, and what brought you here today.
Sure. So I've been in the space from probably 2013, early 2013, mid 2013. I'm a developer, so when I got started, I really got started with the technology. Back in the day, it was mostly Bitcoin. That was basically the blockchain space was Bitcoin and 99% of it. And so I dug into the white paper, I dug into the technology, I even contributed some code into the Bitcoin core client. And when Ethereum came along, I actually started working on or contributed to a project which was the Java version for Ethereum. It's even before Ethereum got launched. There were multiple clients, and one of them was a Java version. I'm not sure if it's alive anymore, but and so that kind of was my introduction into Ethereum. And so ever since, I was very keen on Ethereum to succeed, and obviously very curious about Ethereum, much more so than probably any other chain. And ever since then, pretty much I've been doing and kind of put on the entrepreneurial hat and doing a bunch of things. But the last few years, we're doing mostly SSV Network. Obviously, again, focused on Ethereum and focused on Ethereum infrastructure.
Yeah. All right. Well, pretty awesome. You've had quite the road so far then, right? It's actually
it's been a long road.
Yeah,
Almost 10
definitely.
years.
Yeah, crazy. I mean, I don't know, like 10 years ago, I wasn't even aware that blockchain existed. I was only 17 back then, so
not many were.
yeah, I was still like in high school and everything,
Yeah.
figuring out life, but pretty impressive, very cool. And so, well, obviously, I know what SSV is. I mean, we've been in touch for a while, but in every episode, what we'd like to do is just kind of roll all the way back. And so let's pretend like someone is not aware of SSV at all and is also kind of new to the space. How would you describe SSV and especially what makes it unique compared to all these chains out there?
Right. So SSV in of itself is not really a chain, but SSV is a network, if it makes sense. And so SSV really tries to, I believe, solve one of Ethereum's biggest challenges, which is keeping staking this as decentralized and secure and democratic as possible. Currently, Ethereum staking is very, very difficult, or rather, the infrastructure and the technicalities of doing staking are very, very challenging. Ethereum staking is very different than any other type of staking, and the infrastructure used today is pretty much similar across all of the different staking services, and actually even the biggest ones are pretty similar in terms of the infrastructure they use to individuals staking at home. So it's basically a Bitcoin node connected to some validator client. The validator client is just a piece of software running validator keys. That's basically it. And so that setup is very difficult because it's expensive to develop, it's expensive to maintain, it's somewhat risky. And so what we see in the market today are a small number of operators and validators controlling very, very big amounts of ETH. And that's obviously putting an additional risk on Ethereum itself, but also on those services and obviously the people using them. And so SSV really comes to change the paradigm on which staking is built on. So moving from that, current infrastructure where you have a Bitcoin node and you have a validator client connected between one another into a distributed network, which basically takes an Ethereum validator key and is able to split it up into independent operators. And those operators can coordinate between one another with a consensus protocol and sign using threshold signatures. But the key thing here is that they are distributed and independent, which creates a much more robust infrastructure, more distributed, less risk on the operators and Ethereum overall. And it's just kind of, I see it as kind of the next generation staking infrastructure for Ethereum and maybe later on other blockchains. But it's really a paradigm shift. I always like to call it L0 to Ethereum's L1. But it is hopefully will be that big in terms of changing the way the very stake is managed, and hopefully in the process will make Ethereum at large more robust and more secure.
All right, awesome. Well, I mean, I'm a big fan actually because I am not a big fan of staking Ethereum, which comes from a staking validator. So I
Yeah,
think that says enough about like how complicated it can get and how weird it can get. I think especially for our delegators, we also hear a lot of like questions, and they get very confused, and it's like, but the fees are so high, and I don't understand how to choose anyone. So it's great to hear that someone is actually working on this and making a big difference for everyone out there. And so obviously SSV, it stands for Secret Shared Validators, right?
yeah, exactly.
Initially, I know that the the name has changed in terms of like the term itself, has
Yeah,
been
so the
redeveloped.
current, the current term is kind of for the technology itself. So
Yeah,
DVT is for the technology itself, distributed validated technology. SSV being its leading implementation. DVT in general is kind of the I would say the rooftop or the roof kind of term for everything. And SSV is being our project, of
yeah,
course, and the
yeah.
implementation of it. Yeah.
Okay, so that's great. And so can you tell us a little bit more about, the technology itself? What makes this so groundbreaking? I mean, I know that it's been set in the Ethereum space for a lot of time. Like, wow, this is going to be amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lots of projects and ideas coming out of the space. But what makes this one so groundbreaking?
So SSV takes advantage of two pretty well-established technologies. One is a consensus protocol called QBFT,
Hmm.
and another is threshold signatures. Both of them are pretty well known in the developer circles and pretty well established. The idea here is to combine both of them in order to create that distribution effect for an Ethereum validator. So the consensus protocol gives us fault tolerance and coordination. Fault tolerance means that if a certain amount of those operators I've mentioned before are compromised or offline, anything happens to them, basically, the consensus protocol gives us that fault tolerance against those faulty nodes. And so the validator continues to operate, continues to earn rewards, and is not compromised. And that's a really big thing in terms of robustness, in terms of just in general making a really robust infrastructure which is capable of just overcoming difficulties which obviously each network will find.
Yeah,
And threshold signatures is of course a really proven technology which enables those operators, once they understand what they want to sign through the consensus protocol, to actually sign it and then broadcast it to the Ethereum network. The Ethereum network actually doesn't know SSV or DVT even exists. The network itself simply sees a valid signature from a validator. But behind the scenes, SSV is actually operated by multiple operators. Also, SSV gives way to really interesting key generation schemes like DKG, distributed key generation, and so on. Again, once you build a network of those operators, there's a lot of things you can do with it. And so I think that's really what's groundbreaking. It's taking proven technology and applying it in a slightly different way to really reach a much more healthy Ethereum at large. And so that's why I think it's so groundbreaking, and specifically it's because we're talking about staking, and staking on Ethereum in particular, which is big. I think that a lot of the different partners we're talking with are, they're feeling the value this technology can give them. They see how it fits into the larger Ethereum ecosystem and thesis, and
yeah.
so it makes a lot of sense on multiple kind of layers.
Definitely. Well, that's very clear, and, yeah, I mean, I'm very enthusiastic about it, so I'm glad everyone else is too, and hopefully everyone that, has the chance to listen to this podcast will now agree and, also get on the bandwagon, so to say. And so, I mean, obviously, if you really, really break it down, you're kind of a staking solution for Ethereum, but you also have your own asset, and you also encourage people to use this. So, can you tell me a little bit about how these two are connected, the Ethereum
You mean the SSV
and
token and
SSV?
the
Yeah.
yeah. So the SSV token is a native token for the network. When the network has basically two types of actors within it. You have operators, which are just somebody who's running an SSV node, and most of the really good operators are actually professional staking services.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other hand, you have people coming in with 32 ETH validators, and those people or services or DeFi protocols, whoever wants to run validators on the SSV network, will choose a set of those operators. Those operators can be completely permissionless, they can be private, they can be public, they can be verified. Like there's a bunch of different types of those operators. And they select a set of those operators to work on their validators. And in exchange, those validators pay a fee to those operators, obviously, because the operators are giving them value in terms of running their validators. And so that's kind of the baseline structure for the fee within SSV, and that fee is paid with the SSV token. We do have interesting kind of futuristic ideas of
Mm-hmm.
dynamic network fees using the token and staking and all of that, but that will probably happen in the future. But in general, SSV is really tied into the economics of the network itself. That is, if you have more more validators running on the network,
Yeah.
depending on the Ethereum rewards rate, the price of Ethereum, all of those factors are kind of bundled together to create an ecosystem and economics within the network, and those economics are represented by the SSV token.
All right, sounds very clear. And I think it's very good to hear that you guys have given so much thought about what this token does and what it could do in the future. I think that's definitely one of the things that makes this project so unique, like the well thought out details. I think
Yeah,
I think a lot of projects might just kickstart and be like, okay, yeah, oh yeah, we have the token, you can stake it, and it's great. But there needs to be way more thought behind that. I think. And
yeah,
so
I
it's
definitely agree.
super. So it's great to hear. And so obviously, I know that you guys have an incentivized testnet coming up, and then mainnet. I would really love to hear what kind of are your goals for the incentivized testnet and how it's been going so far.
Sure. So we're just concluding, I think, 14 months in the
Mm-hmm.
first testnet we did. The first testnet actually had an incentivized testnet program within it. The first testnet is about to be terminated, and we are actually launching the V2 testnet, which will hopefully will become the release candidate for SSV in general.
Yeah.
And so within that, we thought long and hard about how we want to see the testnet looking like, because the testnet is really, I mean, we are a developer first platform, right? I mean, obviously, at the end of the day, we're aiming for developers to come and build their staking services on top of SSV and take advantage of the technology. And so the first step every developer always meets is really the testnet. And so the strength of the testnet and how good it is really impacts a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the different decisions developer will make in order to actually move to mainnet. And so it was very clear that we want to have a really solid testnet. And so in order to have a really solid testnet, you either as big as Ethereum, where there's a lot of people very interested in running testnet nodes, or you create some kind of an incentive if you're a smaller project, some kind of an incentive to keep those nodes running, keep the testnet itself running smoothly and as close as possible to mainnet configuration. And so that's really the reason why we did an incentivized testnet. That's really the goal of the incentivized testnet. The goal of the incentivized testnet is to maintain a testnet which is as close as possible to mainnet,
Mm-hmm.
and so first of all incentivize the operators to actually work and keep their nodes running and running smoothly, but also scale it up so we can test out different configurations. Once you create that incentive, you'll see a lot of people joining as operators, as validators, and you create an ecosystem even before you hit mainnet. And that's really important for testing. That's really important for creating that relationship between operators and validators. When an operator doesn't perform well, because there's some kind of an incentive, validators are already incentivized to tell him, look, I mean, you're not performing well, reboot your node, do something, and so on and so forth. And so that's really kind of the goal of the incentivized testnet. And I think that the first one we did was 3 months long, and that was pretty successful. The next one we'll do is going to be longer and better, and overall just to kind of even reach outside of or even after the mainnet launch. Again, with
Mhm.
the thought of having, you ultimately want a really good testnet even after mainnet, because that's really the first thing developers touch. So
Yeah.
that's kind of the thinking. And so, yeah, that's where we are heading. The next big thing for SSV is going to be, we actually just announced it, the first fork for the SSV test network. This is kind of a really crucial point before we launch testnet v2.
Yeah.
And so we'll have this fork and another smaller fork right after. And if those two things go well, then launch of testnet v2 is really, really close by.
All right. Well, that sounds exciting, and
Yeah,
I'll be
definitely.
sure. Yeah, and I'll be sure to keep my eye on that. I know that the guys are here at Staking are definitely working very hard to be part of that one again too. So we'll be around.
Perfect.
But
Perfect.
I think, unfortunately, I mean, I do want to keep it light, but let's be honest, the current situation in the space is not ideal for any company to attract new users mostly.
Right.
And so I would really just like to ask you how you guys are like holding up and how you're dealing with this new market, basically.
So luckily, Ethereum staking is actually moving pretty fast forward, and so
Yeah.
in terms of the new developers coming up or projects coming up, I actually think this is kind of the best time for it, because usually it's, and the saying goes, you build in bear markets and you grow in bull markets. I think it's pretty accurate. I think that building and development didn't really stop. It doesn't really matter what the Ethereum price is, or generally the prices are. People are building, and so we don't see slowdown on that front. I think we'll see a lot of development and a lot of exciting things coming up for Ethereum staking. Even talking about Ethereum staking in general, you have the merge, and then you have the after the merge, the withdrawals enabled, and so on and so forth. So there's a long and exciting path forward in terms of Ethereum in general, Ethereum staking in specific. And so overall, I think that things are going really, really well. We knew the pressure is coming, so we prepared ourselves in terms of resources. And so all in all, we're pretty excited about the future and where things are headed.
Awesome. Well, that's good to hear. And I mean, yeah, I think this time also really separates the people that have fought through and the
Yeah,
projects that are really building from, well, how do I say? I don't want to insult anyone, but the
yeah,
like more meme coins and all that stuff. All the really hot trends. I mean, it's all fun and games, but at the end of the day, I think what makes blockchain so special is the solutions and the technology, and not necessarily all the hype products that come
yeah,
from it sometime. And so, going into something completely different, I know that SSV has a DAO behind it. And I know that this is also a very hot topic these days. So I would just really wanted to ask your opinion about this. Like, why have you chosen to have this DAO behind it, and what do you
yeah.
think this means for, especially the consumers and the users that are interacting?
I think that establishing a DAO really depends on what your goals are and what you're trying to achieve. In our case specifically, it was very clear from the beginning that for SSV to succeed, it has to be decentralized. It has to be let people feel that they are able to change and do things within the network and influence how the network ends up being. And so, if we have done everything like centralized and not having governance and all of those things, I think that it will severely limit the way you can position yourself as a project. Again, centralized versus decentralized and so on. And so for us, it was a no-brainer. I think DAO has a lot of challenges. It's very hard to coordinate a DAO to execute things, much harder than obviously a centralized company. But on the flip side is that you have a much larger amount of people actually involved in what you're doing on a daily basis. And so um, all in all, I think that it's challenging, definitely, but it also introduced us a lot of amazing people that work with us as part of our community, and obviously ambassadors. And so all in all, I think it's incredible, and also that DAO knows to do things like grants and stuff like that, which otherwise, it's very hard to do. And so all in all, I'm very happy. There's a lot of work we still need to do with the DAO, but all in
Yeah.
all, I think it was the right decision for us.
Awesome. Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned the governance process. Is there anything that you would like to say to people that are staking on Ethereum, on other networks in terms of governance? I know that for a lot of people, it can be very daunting to get
Yeah, it is.
involved. So, yeah, do you have any tips or tricks that you
Uh,
would give them?
I mean, no tips or tricks, but generally, I think that if you're the type of person staking, which you also care about, deepening your knowledge and having impact and so on, then those DAOs are definitely a place you should check out. Because you could have direct influence on Ethereum at large, and obviously the project is specific. And so I guess it's the type of person you are. If you're liking being passive, I think that's again, it's more work, and it's something you need to do consistently. And so, but it's very rewarding, I think, and people feel empowered, feel accomplishments when their DAO is doing well, and so on.
Definitely. Yeah, you get a lot for it in return. I think it can be challenging at first, but I would just say, give it a try. You have nothing to lose
Definitely,
at the end of the day, right? So good to
definitely,
have as many people involved as possible.
definitely.
So yeah, first of all, thank you so much. Those were my biggest questions. And before we wrap everything up, I just want to ask you if there's anything else that you would like to say, anything important that I missed.
I
Yeah.
think just in terms of the kind of the general sentiment, I think
Mm-hmm.
it's very exciting times for Ethereum. There's a lot going on, a lot of new opportunities, a lot of things changing, and I think that for tech people and enthusiasts in general, I think it's an amazing time to be alive in, and working in crypto and in blockchain in general. So don't be phased by don't be afraid by the prices. They'll go up and down, but I think that in general the level of excitement we see from people who are the core of things, I think is unweathering, and people are very excited and very kind of hands on very exciting things building up,
Yeah.
and so if you find it interesting, don't look at CoinMarketCap for a year or two, and just keep on building.
Exactly. Just ignore everything else and just keep focused on what's really
Exactly.
important.
Exactly.
Awesome. All right. Well, Alon, thank you so much for being here.
Thank
It
you.
was really nice to meet you.